While after 4 months in captivity, Israel military says it has rescued 2 hostages. This comes as Israeli airstrikes pounded the civilian populated town of Rafah, located in southern Gaza, incurring a high number of casualties. The 2 hostages were reunited with their relatives and loved ones in a hospital in Ramat Gan in Israel, much to their shock and disbelief. A joint operation by the Israeli military, the domestic Shin Bet security service and the special police unit in Rafah freed Fernando Simon Marmon, age 60, and Louis Ha, age 70. They were kidnapped by Hamas militants from kibbutz on October 7th. And according to the Israeli army, 2 hostages were among the 136 that remain in Hamas captivity. On your screens there, visuals of those hostages reuniting with their families.
לפנות בוקר, בשעה 1:49.
Early in the morning at 1:49, special forces broke into a building in the heart of Rafah. There on the second floor, Luis and Fernando were held by armed Hamas terrorists who were in the building and terrorists who were in the neighboring buildings. From the moment of fire into the apartment, the soldiers of the Yamam embraced and protected Luis and Fernando with their bodies, and a daring battle and heavy exchange of fire began in several locations at the same time with many terrorists.
בכמה מוקדים במקביל עם מחבלים רבים.
Well, reacting to the rescue operations, many Israeli citizens expressed their happiness while hoping that all hostages would be released soon.
You're very, very proud, very proud. It's a little bit of happiness and, warm our hearts. And we just hope that somehow all of them will be back.
And today, Kfar Saba city is very, very happy, because we have the hostage back.
We are so very thankful that one of the hostages from Kfar Saba is being released now.
Meanwhile, heavy overnight strikes in Rafah have resulted in the deaths of at least 67 people, including many children. 3 mosques and several houses were also damaged in the strikes. Hundreds of Palestinians were seen at the Al-Najor hospital in Rafah to mourn those who had died in the strikes. And according to the Gaza Health Ministry, the death toll in the conflict has reached 28,176. While the latest airstrikes in Rafah have caused widespread panic among those who managed to flee the north and reach Gaza's border city of Rafah, they fear an Israeli onslaught is imminent. The southern city is the last refuge for 1 million displaced Gazans with nowhere else to go. Biden has warned Netanyahu must not act without a plan.
Israel launched a special forces operation that freed 2 Israeli hostages in Rafah on Monday. The operation also included airstrikes, which local health officials said killed and wounded dozens in the southern Gaza city. The Israeli military identified the freed hostages as Fernando Simon Marmon and Louis Hare. The 2 men were kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th, along with 250 others, according to Israeli tallies. Israel has responded with a military assault on the Gaza Strip that has killed more than 28,000 Palestinians, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Residents of Rafah contacted by Reuters said Monday's attacks caused widespread panic. They added that planes, tanks, and ships took part in the strikes, and that 2 mosques and several houses were hit. Some feared a ground offensive into the city had begun. The Israeli military said on Monday it had conducted a, quote, series of strikes on southern Gaza that had now, quote, concluded, without providing further details. A military spokesman said Marmon and Hare were extracted from the second story of a building by Israeli forces under the cover of an airstrike. The military said they were in good condition and had been taken to a hospital near Tel Aviv. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in an interview aired on Sunday that, quote, enough of the 132 remaining Israeli hostages held in Gaza were alive to justify Israel's war in the region. His office has said that it had ordered the military to develop a plan to evacuate Rafah and destroy 4 Hamas battalions it says are deployed there. Hamas-run television on Sunday quoted a senior Hamas leader as saying any ground offensive in Rafah would, quote, blow up the hostage exchange negotiations. The same day, Egypt warned of, quote, dire consequences of a potential military assault on Rafah, which lies near its border. Aid agencies say an assault on Rafah would be catastrophic, as it is the last relatively safe place in an enclave devastated by Israel's military offensive.
So what exactly are Israel's plans for a Rafah offensive? Our correspondent Jody Cohen sent us this report from Kar Sabah.
Right, so Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that the IDF has defeated 3/4 of Hamas's battalions, and their next step is to destroy the last quarter who are in Rafah. Hamas is said to be hiding among the civilian population, and Netanyahu has called for plans to be drawn up to evacuate civilians before the on-the-ground IDF operation would begin. Now, the Biden administration has expressed concern about the Rafah operation because of the civilians there. Jordan's King Abdullah is going to be at the White House on Monday, and he's reportedly going to be lobbying for a ceasefire. Netanyahu has suggested that because of the population size, Hamas's 7th of October attack was like 29 9/11s, and that other countries' responses, including the US, would be the same as Israel. He also said that those who tell Israel not to enter Rafah or who call for a ceasefire are basically supporting keeping Hamas in power. Now, prominent commentator Yaakov Katz has said that asking Israel not to enter Rafah is like asking the US to leave ISIS in Mosul in 2017. He suggested that countries should be pressurizing Hamas to release the hostages and to surrender, and that pressurizing Israel is playing into Hamas's hands.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.